Hi, my name is Martin Bull and I'm Head of Communications at the ICES Neutron and Muon Source. I would like to give a short introduction to the topic of social media and social networking, particularly thinking about scientists and science and how these tools can be used to share your research work beyond the lab walls out into the wider community. I've called the talk Broadcast Yourself, shamelessly stolen from YouTube. But I actually think it's important to realise that uh, things are changing and we cannot um, remain cloistered in university labs and offices. We need to share our work more widely with non-specialists and actually engage with people about the work we're doing and the value that work has. Um, and social media is a way to do that. As much as email is ubiquitous for everyday life, social media tools, you may have heard of some of them, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, are becoming increasingly dominant and actually will at some point probably supersede email. So I think for scientists it's particularly important to use them, start using them, but also they're great for actually blending science into the mix of culture and society that's ongoing. So um, that's why I think we should use them. I will give a short introduction to different tools that are available, services, my thoughts on starting points on how and when to use them, and also I'd like to emphasise the importance of using online activity to support real world events. So I would like to just take a step back and think about what is social media. And here is a timeline, very, very incomplete, of social media running from, on the left, the postal service in Persia, 550 BC, through to the modern day. And a number of things are striking. I mean, firstly, what is social media? Well, I define social media as a way of exchanging a message between two people who are not physically close to each other. So the first postal service was the exchange of letters. What is amazing is that it's only since the 60s that we've actually started being able to communicate more easily using electronic methods, so from email, but also now using more common sites like Wikipedia or Facebook and Flickr. And what is interesting, if you look at this timeline, is that many of these sites did not exist before the year 2000, and many of the common ones we have today, 2011, were only just beginning in 2005. So these are really modern tools that are beginning to become very commonplace, but yet they are still very young, and so people are still trying to figure out how best to use them, particularly for the area of science. But I think that people should be looking to use these tools. Now, of course, you might ask yourself, where on earth do we start? Because there are actually an awful lot of social networking services you could choose from, and there are hundreds. And I would say that you don't need to be on all of them, and in fact, that would be a very poor communication strategy for any project to be trying to tackle all of these networks. So how do you make choices between them? Well, luckily, some of the social networks are dead, so it's possible to obtain statistics over the years about how the services are used. And so this one, MySpace, of course, was once popular, is now no longer popular. It's just been sold by Rupert Murdoch. Others are changing and dying out. So this is one called Plaxo that you may never have heard of, but it had a sort of interesting reach in America. But again, it's falling away. And some social networks simply just cover odd regions of the world. So this one called Hi5 is quite useful if you're living in the west coast of South America or the west coast of Africa, but not terribly useful if you happen to live in the UK. Those that are really popular, such as Facebook, continue to grow, and actually what's interesting is they have a wide use across all income ranges and ages and genders. And Facebook is one of the most widely used social networks across the globe, and you can actually see it's continuing to grow in popularity. Flickr is great for photo sharing. It's particularly strong in the UK, but very, very useful. LinkedIn, another social network you might have heard of, and which is becoming increasingly popular in the UK, particularly for professionals to use as a networking tool between different businesses. So it's not used at all for comparing notes about what you did at the party last night, but it is actually becoming a way of connecting businesses together through different networks. And Twitter has exploded in popularity. I think this is because it's just so simple and easy and elegant to use. You have to condense everything you want to say into 140 characters, and this provides a great focus, prevents rambling, but also it's very immediate and gives people a very fast way of connecting together. And actually in Japan, after the earthquake in March 2011, it was Twitter that turned out to be the way that people kept news flowing around very quickly when all the other traditional media and even cell phones had actually been disrupted. So Twitter, I think, will continue to be used and be effective, and it also has very wide use across the globe. So you can reach, from the UK, you can reach right across to Australia very, very simply. That. And YouTube is another site, social media. I mean, this has become a global phenomena for video sharing. I mean, there are thousands of hours of video uploaded every minute across the planet. Many of it very poor quality, some of it very excellent quality, but it is actually where many people are looking for their videos. And I think one of the nice things about social networking is it allows you to put your science out into the places where people are looking for other content, and so they are more likely to come across work related to your research. And actually for the UK, YouTube demographic is quite well matched to the STFC target audiences for its public engagement activities. So we see that 30% of the users are female compared to 70% male, but within those user bases we find very strong representation from the 13 to 24-year-old age range, which is excellent. It's actually quite fairly balanced between the two groups in terms of who's using YouTube. It's actually worth contemplating the global reach of Facebook. So a chap in Italy here has been able to map the dominance of Facebook, so this is June 2009, and actually does it every 6 months, and so in June 2010 you can see Facebook beginning to increase and take over as being the most popular network across the world. Luckily in June 2011 they were seeing some fight back in the Russian region with new networks becoming more favoured. But I think 6 months ago I would have said that Facebook maybe wasn't worth bothering with. However, they've made a number of changes, and actually given the widespread use of Facebook, then I think it can't be ignored. Not only do you have to think about where your audience is reading social networks, but you also have to think about what they're doing at any particular time. So Ofcom in August last year, 2010, published a wonderful report on the UK's media consumption habits, and they produced a number of wonderful pieces of information which they've conveyed through graphs. So this graph here shows along the bottom axis the time of day, going from morning to night, and on the vertical axis it's the activities that are taking place at any particular time. And you can see some fun things, so that 9 o'clock at night everyone is watching TV, and in the morning radio is dominant way of listening to or using media. Also note that across the whole day, telephone calls and text messaging, email, social networking are taking place, and actually we're beginning to see trends where these things are happening at the same time. So whilst you're watching TV, you're actually also perhaps texting or updating your Facebook profile. Ofcom also looked at the usage of computers, And actually what they found was that a significant fraction of activity on computers is actually devoted to communicating. This could be email, instant messaging, social networks. So communicating via these methods is actually very important to people. And actually using social networks, a few years ago you might have thought it would not reach people you wanted to. But actually now most homes have internet access. It's now this is fast internet access. And also across socioeconomic groupings, there's also fairly good reach of the internet. So more and more these will become commonplace tools for interacting with each other. And also, if you compare the usage of social network sites via either desktop computer or via mobile devices, then particularly in the younger ages, as you might expect, mobile usage is actually high, well, 20%, and it's actually increasing. So we're going to start to see a shift in the tools, the devices that people use to update the social network profiles and also to receive updates themselves. Ofcom also looked at the experience of using the internet. So what are people comfortable doing, what's commonplace, and they looked at a different range of things. So most people have uploaded a photo and are very comfortable doing that, and most people have set up some kind of social network page. Whether they use it or not, that's not in here, but those are easy activities everyone can do. And then you actually see things dropping off. So about half of the population has contributed to someone else's blog, making a comment, perhaps setting up your own website is more complicated, and then making video is not very commonplace at the moment, but it's something that will continue to grow. And actually, interestingly, contributing to collaborative sites such as Wikipedia is something that not very many people are confident to do. And actually, amongst scientists, very few people contribute to websites such as Wikipedia, which I think is quite shocking, really, because it is becoming one of the default ways of sharing knowledge. And I think as academics, there is a duty on us to update these sites so they're accurate or can point to the right resources. So I would encourage everybody who's a scientist here to actually make sure they contribute to Wikipedia. If you look at the different activities that are possible with computers and the importance and attention that people pay to them, then you get a clear message about the importance of using social networks and text messaging and generally immediate interacting. So this graph shows the perceived importance across the bottom axis and the attention that's paid to them up the vertical axis, and you can see on the right hand side of this graph we get all of the in orange social networking, instant messaging, emails, all of those immediate high attention communication activities. This graph shows what people are doing at any one particular time versus age groups, and actually in the younger age groups you can see that people are multitasking, so the green bars on the right hand side, and this is increasingly happening. In fact, the BBC now call it second screen programming, and there was a program trial with Autumn Watch where as the TV program was ongoing, iPad apps were updated with additional information about the animals and for people to comment and learn about what was being discussed on the TV in the same time, which was then fed back to the programmers who were able to respond to questions, for example. So these are trial experiments going on at the moment, but increasingly this is going to become dominant, and actually